Hello, this is Dr. Mahoney, and I want to talk a little bit about GMO apples. What would you do? What is your favorite apple? Is it a Gala, which is mine? Is it a Red Delicious? Is it a Granny Smith? Is it a Fuji? Is it a Golden Delicious? There are over 7,000 different varieties of apples, and only about 100 or so are produced in the United States. So that means the rest of them we don't have access to unless we get them from another country. Would you eat an apple if it was genetically modified? Would you eat an apple if you couldn't get your brand that you liked and you needed it a little bit cheaper, and it was able to be cheaper by scientists changing the genes and making it into that apple? What is a GMO? So a GMO stands for genetically modified organism, and it's anything, whether it's food or not food, that is the DNA is tweaked or changed. How are GMOs made? In a nutshell, a GMO is made by taking the gene from one bacteria or one type of cell and inserting it into another cell. When a GMO would be made for an apple, if you wanted to make the apple so it was larger, then you would use a gene that produced a larger type of apple. Generally, what happens is the organism that with the desired gene is taken out and isolated, and you need to use restriction enzymes to cut those genes out. Once it's cut out, the gene is inserted into oftentimes a plasmid. It can be inserted into the soil, or a new type of method is called gene gun therapy. And basically that will take the gene and then put it into these gold flecks, and then the gene is actually shot into the plant or the organism that you want it to be shot into. It's usually in a petri dish, and then the plant will grow. The cells will be taken out of the petri dish and they'll grow, and eventually will produce whatever gene and trait that you got from that gene that you wanted. Here's what happens with the gene gun. Doesn't quite look like a gun, but the vacuum is building, as he's saying. If you notice in the middle of the screen, underneath that black gun, it's kind of a straight and it's a petri dish. In a few seconds, you'll hear a pop.
Precious building at 650 psi of level.
Okay.
There it is.
So what happened was the gold flecks, which really aren't even visible with the naked eye, were shot into the petri dish, and that allows the cells to absorb some of the gold flecks that have the desired gene on them. The cells, some of them may be destroyed by the gene gun, and others are absorbed into the DNA is absorbed into the cells, and those cells can be taken out of the petri dish and then grown or created into a plant. So why would we want a GMO apple? There's many reasons you'd want a GMO, genetically modified organism. Sometimes it's to prevent or resistance to insects or viruses. It could be for apples to not get them to brown as quickly as they do. It could also be to make them larger. If you look at the picture on the right, you see a very large apple, which could be a GMO, and a smaller apple on the left. Obviously, the larger apple is going to give us more food. A lot of GMOs were first started so they could feed people in third world countries, so there would just be more food for us. Unfortunately, they don't always have to tell you what a GMO is. You eat a lot of foods right now that you don't realize are GMOs. For example, a GMO, all of our produce has numbers on them. So apples will have, or grapes or tomatoes have numbers. If it begins with the number 4, it's a typical fruit. So if the example in the middle, the Granny Smith apple is 4139. That's what you normally see in a grocery store. The one on the left is 94129. When it begins with a 9, it means that it's organic. And that just means that it's naturally grown. There's no chemicals used within the process of growing it. It does not mean it's genetically modified. It's actually tomato on the right shows a 5-digit code beginning with the number 8. This means it's genetically modified, so it's a GMO. Unfortunately, not all organizations have to tell you that a GMO is being created and have to label it by using an 8. There are many, many different organisms that use or people that use GMOs inside of things. So you might have a box of cereal that is made with corn, and most of the corn is genetically modified, or made with soybeans, and most of that is genetically modified. So they don't have to tell you it, whether it's a straight produce or whether it's in something. About 30,000 foods perhaps on our shelves are genetically modified. Everything from soybeans. You might not think you eat soybeans, but they're in a lot of different foods you eat. Soybeans are, if you eat edamame, that's what a soybean is. If you have soy milk, if you look within, a lot of stuff has soy lecithin in it that they use. But 93% of soy or 94% of soy is considered genetically modified. So about 80% of all the food that we have in the grocery stores is genetically modified. So everything from oil to corn to certain fruits and vegetables that we eat can be modified. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, they don't have to tell you, the industry, the FDA does not mandate that organizations and tell you that something is genetically modified. So, do you think you deserve the right to know? You're not a science experiment. Should you be told if something's a GMO? I believe you should. It is your right to know if you're eating a genetically modified organism. Whether it's good or bad for you, you can make the decision. Just like it's your right to know if there's something that's harmful in food or that it's something's organic. You can make the decision whether you want to eat it or not eat it or try to stay away from it, but we are not given that right because the government does not mandate that we put down on our products that something is GMO. Some organizations like Whole Foods, which a picture from the bottom is from Whole Foods, believes that it is important that they tell their consumers. So whenever possible, they will tell them. There are some organizations that will put it right on their box, non-GMO product. Because if it's not there, it doesn't mean that it is a GMO. We don't know. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.